Hi guys, welcome to today's session. So we're carrying on with this sculpture study, working from a piece of sculpture as the reference, which is up on the left. And we're pretty much just like following on in a reasonably logical way. So the first two sessions, we spent the first session getting everything kind of blocked in shape-wise. And then the next session we were working on the shadows, so a bit more definition in the shadows, etc. And this session we're going to be developing the halftones. So the parts of the drawing or the forms which are not getting direct light, more sort of up top here we're getting direct light, so bridge of the nose, but they're not quite in shadow, so they're receiving light but they're not receiving a lot of light. We've started that a little bit sort of down here, so around his jawline there's some halftones going on there, but we're going to be just kind of developing the number of them and their complexity today. Generally, the way that I like to approach the beginning of a halftone is using sort of passes. So rather than trying to get into loads of detail, pretty much everything I do is about avoiding too much detail too early on. So rather than kind of jumping in and doing lots of detail, we work thinking about larger transitions of tone, so larger planal changes. So for instance, his cheek here, I want the whole of that plane to be a bit darker than it is, so I just do it as a single pass. And I run my hatching sort of perpendicular to the direction I'm traveling typically. So these forms, for instance, are sort of rolling up, getting lighter at the top. So I'm going from darker to lighter, darker to lighter. Or this form, we want that to be a little bit darker on the left-hand side. Just grabbing my maul stick. Not sure if it will necessarily help me, but we'll see. And then in some places, like around the nose, I'm doing much more delicate transitioning out of the shadows. I'm not traveling far at all, so I'm not working on necessarily an entire plane in that case. So on the whole, the side plane of the nose is a little bit darker than the front plane, so I can sort of start to capture that a little bit. So I'm sort of working plane by plane, and you can see that's starting to flesh out the drawing. I'm not strictly going in and kind of being really detailed just yet. So one of the major considerations is we want what's called a fall of light. So we want generally it to feel a bit brighter at the top of the drawing. And you can achieve that by doing kind of general passes as well as these, well, even more general passes, let's say. So if I'm working from the bottom up, I can just make even the lighter parts of the drawing darker, down the bottom. And in doing that, we kind of create a sense of volume or voluminousness. So the left-hand side of the drawing as well is a bit darker generally than the sort of right center, so we can pull big sections of darker tone from those edges. You can see this gradual process, these divisions, sort of finding lighter, finding darker patches. Not really detail, so you've noticed I've not, mostly like I'm holding the pencil pretty far back. I'm working in big sweeping planes of tone. I'm not working that much with details, like little sections here and there. I'll go in a little bit more closely, but I'm never really holding the pencil up close like you would write. So I also tend to, as I'm getting further away from the features of the face when I'm doing anything that's sort of portrait related, and I've mentioned this before, but I tend to get a bit looser. So particularly as we're getting down into the chest, I don't want lots of precise lines. I just want kind of big, sort of generalized sways of tone. I wanted to suggest what the forms are. Like, there's a lot of interesting muscular forms. Through the neck that we want to capture. But I'm just not going to be super precise. So you can see we're just doing gradual passes, build up and gradual passes. No point am I really pressing super heavy. Rather, if I want to build depth of tone, I just pass back over. So this is actually more of a shadow, but I need to push it a little bit darker for this beard to pop out. And I'm not thinking, I've just sort of started working a little bit on an edge here. So whether that dark halftone reflected light meets the shadow underneath the neck. And I've kind of added a little bit of variety in the sense that was a sharper edge than the edges that I have been laying in. But on the whole, I'm not too worried about edges. That'll be the sort of one of the final things we do when we're sort of sweeping over the whole thing. Generally, I just want to try to push like all these tones just a bit darker yet. I'm going to see how far I can push the lower tones being darker. Because as I say, it really does start to build up a nice sense of glow in the rest of the drawing. So the last sort of thing you can do at this stage, I'm getting pretty close to like being happy with how these halftones are laid in. The last thing I can do is go in and start picking out highlights. So places where with the general passes of tone, I maybe went a little bit too dark and I want to make them lighter. So for instance, in the nose here, it'd be nice to pull a little bit of tone out. And this is similar to if you've ever done any kind of negative drawing type stuff where you tone the surface before you start drawing. And you sort of, the whole way you work is erasing back in. In this case, it's sort of done in tandem with the laying tone down the way that we have been. And so what this sets us up for is over the next session or two, as we complete the drawing, we've got pretty much everything sort of blocked in terms of generally what it is. So we've got, separation of the hair forms from the head. We've got a sense of what's a cheekbone or what's part of the forehead, etc., etc. And so the next couple of sessions we can go in and sort of pick areas to refine, areas that we want to make more detailed or correct little things about, or correct the relationships between things. Just that sort of stuff, basically. But yeah, I think for today that's a good place to wrap up. This is a good sort of portion of the drawing to have had done before you take a break after this section of a little sketch. even if you're doing everything kind of all in one, like you're working through in a day, this is a good point to have a little bit of a rest once you've kind of got your halftones in place, because beyond this we're really sort of rendering. So the whole of the drawing up to this point is establishing, kind of confirming proportions and placements of things. And then what we'll be doing from the next session onwards is refining into that stuff that we've already established. So the overall drawing doesn't change so much from this point. It's kind of reached from a distance, it's going to look roughly the same, the drawing, but it's only as we start to look at things up close that it'll get more detailed as we draw it. So yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, you can subscribe to the channel if you want to keep up to date with lessons from myself and other teachers and students from the school. You can also click the link through in the profile or in our comment in our description for the video to see the sorts of paid qualifications that we offer. But yeah, until next time we carry on working with this, I'll hope you guys enjoy your drawing, and I'll see you soon.